Welcome to the Ask a Leader track, helping consumers and businesses bank safely with ease and confidence. If you're looking for a different session or topic, use the track buttons below to navigate throughout the event. I'm Allison Phelan with BECU, and I'm honored to moderate this session. Today, we're joined by three BECU leaders who are committed to meeting the needs of our members and employees and ensuring they remain safe during these uncertain, challenging times. We'll start with introductions. I'll ask each of our hosts to share a bit about their areas of focus, and then we'll take some questions. You can use the questions box on the right side of the page to submit a question. We'll answer as many as we can during the time we have together. Fumbi, I'll have you start with introductions.
Thank you, Allison. My name is Fumbi Chima. I'm the Executive Vice President and Chief Information and Transformation Officer for BECU. I just recently am probably the newest member of the executive management team. I've been with the company for just shy of 2 years. My overall responsibility for the organization is leading the organization's technology strategy, information security, and the technology operations. And this obviously includes ensuring our members have secure, seamless access to their accounts. Over to you, Jon.
Thank you, Fumbi. So I'm Jon Stewart. I'm the Chief Risk Officer. I've been with BECU coming up on 6 years in August. So I oversee the governance, risk, legal, and compliance functions here at BECU. So Melanie, on to you.
Great, thanks, Jon, and welcome everyone. I'm Melanie Walsh, and I'm the Executive Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer. I started at BECU in the Contact Center about 33 years ago. I lead BECU's overall people strategy, which also includes our diversity, equity, and inclusion work, as well as real estate services and our deposit operations. Back to you, Allison.
Hopefully, all of you joining us were able to attend the State of the Credit Union session earlier. 2021 was another eventful year, and all of you led efforts that really made a difference for our members, our employees, and our communities. While we don't have time to cover all of the significant highlights of the year from your areas of the credit union, are there a few that really stand out for each of you or things that you're particularly proud of from 2021? Melanie, let's start with you.
Yeah, certainly. We welcomed more than 650 new team members in 2021. We also introduced a new employee recommended paid time off program that really offers new ways for employees to recharge and renew. This includes reimbursement for educational expenses, funds to pay down student debt, and also cash to build up those emergency savings. Lastly, we also launched a new employee resource groups with over 1,000 employees actively participating in at least one of our ERGs. So really great stuff last year. Jon, would you like to go to next?
Sure. Thanks, Melanie. So I'll mention a few highlights. So first, we have an external advocacy program where we meet with industry groups, regulators, and other policymakers, and will advocate in areas that directly benefit our members or BECU. So these are areas like protecting consumer data, financial literacy, providing access to affordable housing, and preserving the credit union tax preference that helps us return profits to our members. So for example, we were glad to see that our efforts played a part in Washington State recently approving some education funding focused on financial literacy, which is certainly an effort we strongly support. And we also appreciate the Washington State Legislature's work in some more technical and maybe more boring updates to the credit union charter that go into effect in June. Second highlight to me, we improved the way that we hire and engage vendors. So we use third parties just like everybody else, but we focused on considering diversity more explicitly. So we've been increasing the proportion of vendors we work with that are minority owned. And the last item I'll mention, the last highlight, we're regulated by the state of Washington, the NCUA, which is the National Credit Union Administration, and the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. So the state of Washington and NCUA perform at least annual, very detailed and thorough exams and all our examiners perform a lot of continuous monitoring. So we can't give out details. Our regulatory exam outcomes in 2021 and 2022 have all been very favorable, which is just another good sign that BECU is a very stable and safe institution, and we're on a great path going forward. So with that, Fumbi, I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you, Jon. Over the last 2021, we did several things, and what I'm most excited about, particularly, is how we introduce more nimble ways of working that enable us to help members more effectively, efficiently, and quickly. For example, we had our pod team approach is one example, as I'm sure you have all seen in the STOTCU video, where we've incorporated an agile process that helps speed up our development. For example, we're legally required to verify the address of every single loan within 3 days of the application date. Our team transformed the process so it's now automated. The addresses are validated against the USPS, updated as needed to match the standardized format, and a screenshot for our records. We also rolled out a new and enhanced feature to better serve our members' financial health. We improved the virtual assistant, which I hope many of you have used, which helped members to get support 24/7. We're testing the BECU envelopes. And also we have a mobile app enhancement, which is about helping pending transactions, displaying more credit card payments information, including the due dates and minimum payment amount. And last but not least, we introduced the business online banking to meet specific needs of our business members. Allison, back to you.
Great stuff. Thanks, you guys. Let's move our focus to 2022. What's top of mind for you this year? What are you most excited about in 2022? And Fumbi, let's have you jump in first.
Well, I'm particularly excited about two key things. As you know, I have two roles within the organization. The first one is about the transformation. And the transformation effort that we're doing at BECU, which includes investing in modernizing the foundational technology platforms of the credit union to provide greater member experience and create and improve our member experience in how we interact with BECU and manage their money. This work is a multi-year effort and is currently underway. Also, we're bringing innovation into the mix. We prioritize the expansion of automation within BECU processes to simplify and expedite processes for our members. This year, we're bringing more automations to some of the work, even in our back office processes, to help improve speed for resolution times. So exciting things for us in 2022. Melanie, how about you?
Well, I am equally excited about one of them, both of them that you mentioned, but especially in terms of the robotic process automation. Super excited about that. Also, in terms of this year, we have a number of areas that we're piloting. One of the pilots that's currently underway is to serve members in their native language by expanding language capabilities to Spanish-speaking communities. We began piloting this in various NFCs and are really looking forward to continuing this pilot in other areas as well as potentially other languages. I would also say, eliminating barriers to mental health continues to be a top priority. This year we're bringing a more comprehensive approach to all areas of well-being as a new benefit to employees. How about you, Jon?
Sure, thanks, Melanie. So some of the highlights to me for what we're focused on right now. So one, we continue to invest in cybersecurity to make sure our members' information is really well protected. And some of this is very visible to the membership. So for example, how we authenticate, tools like multi-factor authentication. But a lot of it is really kind of back office and less visible to membership. So things like how we segment our network to lead to greater protection of data. Another focus of broad interest is that we're beginning to look at the impacts of climate change on our risk profile. So how might floods and fires impact our membership, including the most financially vulnerable segments of our population? So we're early stage in this, both from a risk perspective and thinking about how we can support our members over time. But I expect this is going to be a continued focus for years to come. And a third and last example for me is really an ongoing focus in automation. So for example, our compliance team is automating some of the repetitive tasks that they do to ensure compliance in our lending activities. And this is actually the robotic process automation that Fumbi and Melanie each mentioned earlier. So even in areas where the benefits and efficiencies from automation are really, they're more singles than doubles or triples and not home runs, we know that a lot of singles are going to build up over time and result in real savings to our membership. So those are some highlights for me. So with that, Allison, I'll pass it back to you.
Great. Go Mariners. Thank you, Fumbi, Jon, and Melanie. Now we'll transition to the Q&A portion of the session, and my colleague Hazel May is going to assist. Remember, you can submit a question via the questions button on the right side of the screen. So let's get started. I believe we had some questions that were submitted leading up to today, as well as during the State of the Credit Union presentation. Hazel May, what's our first question?
You are absolutely right, Allison. In addition to taking live questions, we ask members to share questions in advance, and we have a few to start us off to get warmed up. So our first question is, a few people are wondering what our leaders have learned this past year as we slowly emerge from the pandemic.
Thanks, Hazel May. Fumbi, I will have you address this question first. What have you learned over the past year of the pandemic, business or personal?
Well, let's start with personal. I think it's about family, right? I think this last 2 years has given us time to bond and really understand what our interest and passionate, and mental health is a big issue. I know many people are experiencing it, and being grateful to be safe, well, and sound, and for both our employees and also for our members. I think in terms of work, I think the element about keeping our members' information live and safe, right? Good thing I have Jon as a partner in the space, whether we're sharing the cybersecurity element, and because the awareness and the ability to make sure that we keep our member data safe in a virtual world, which is becoming increasingly difficult and more complicated over time, is intact. So we spent a lot of time around us, a way to be able to guard and protect our member information. I think some of those efforts is what Jon has shared with you in helping us keep ensure that we've got a merge. And then thirdly, it's around innovation, right? We mentioned the words around robotic process automation, right? Innovation and automation is very paramount in times where we're all working in the virtual piece. How do we become more efficient, effective to our members? Make sure that even our employees work really closely to serve the members a lot better and more efficient way. So, I'd say family, innovation, automation, mental health, and keeping members' data information safe is really what I've learned over the last few years. Jon?
Sure. Thanks, Fumbi. So 2 thoughts for me. So first, I've really been impressed with the improvement in our members' overall financial health, especially with respect to saving money during the pandemic. And I know the various stimulus programs were a driver of this trend, but I hope and I expect that some of that behavior is going to stick around in the longer term. So in the early parts of the pandemic, unemployment rates were very high, and I was really worried it was going to be a period of rapidly deteriorating financial health. But in aggregate, it's been kind of the opposite. It's been improvement. So that's really been a pleasant surprise. Second, and beyond that, it's the overall resiliency of BECU employees and our members in adapting to ever-changing circumstances. And I know some of it was probably frustrating. We're changing internal processes just to adapt to the changing circumstances of the pandemic, change the way members interact with us. But I think there's a real tangible silver lining in that we learned how to be more efficient and use technology to our benefit. So changing the way we work internally, even this meeting. So ways that are more efficient, using technology really to our benefit, And I think a lot of that is going to persist into the future and make us more efficient. So with that, Melanie, I'll pass it on to you.
Right. Thanks, Jon. We had some similar learnings. Certainly learned a lot of a number of things over the past couple of years. And I think also some were reaffirmed, like the resiliency that Jon also spoke about in terms of resiliency of our teams to not only serve members, but also our community and each other. Certainly won't say it was easy, but certainly rewarding in terms of finding those new ways of working and new ways of solving problems in really an expeditious way. I would also say that even the tenacity to sort of persevere, but with empathy over the last 2 years is something that I'm really quite honestly humbled by, and is a really great example of just how we live our values. I would also say, sort of personally as well as professionally, just embracing the simplicity, and not only the simplicity of just flexibility and how work-life balance sort of comes in many different shapes and forms is something that I think I would say is a really positive and unexpected outcome of the past 2 years. And I really look forward to, quite honestly, seeing, continue. So back to you, Allison.
Great. Thank you all for your thoughts. Hazel May, what's our next question?
Yes, so this one actually came in, I believe, live from one of our members. Andrew, thank you for your question. And I'm going to throw this one to Fumbi so that you're ready. It's a little bit of a technical question.
Okay.
So multi-factor authentication is still SMS based. Is BECU going to follow the tech industry and support authenticator apps or hardware based base security keys for sign-in and discontinue SMS, which is vulnerable to problems like number of hijacking?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, again, one of the things that we have to do is as an organization, we're not always ahead of the pack, nor do we want to be. I think we want to be, secure and make sure that we adhere and keep all our members' information and employees' information safe. The concept that the industry is still grappling with around this member app authentication is not, it's still very new in the tech space. I would say as a technologist, I'm still fairly, I feel very confident around this old technology, the SMS, the text bound piece. I think over time we may evolve into it, but it's not something that we, from a long-term strategy that we're looking at. But I think incorporating it into the future ecosystem from a full digital bulletproof, that technology product companies are beginning to incorporate is probably going to be a better way for us to do that. So more to come around that. I think everybody is exploring different ways of applications that would enable them to make sure that we continue to keep safe. So once we make those decisions, we absolutely will make sure. But the priority is keeping employees' data, safe and accurate, and more importantly, the member information correct.
Great. Thanks, Fumbi. Hazel May, ready for another one?
Yes. So this one I think can go to anyone, and it's another pre-event submission. So a member submitted this before today. Lots of companies are focused on diversity. What is BECU doing to create a diverse and inclusive workplace?
That's a great question, Hazel May. I think, Melanie, we will have you take that one.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. Well, first and foremost, BECU, we believe in building a team that's really rooted in both equity and inclusion, and which really has a direct impact, we believe, on the success of BECU as well as our community at large. I think, this is really foundational to not only our culture, but it also helps to define who we are. In 2021, I would say that, we put into place some infrastructure that would really allow us to align our equity and inclusion efforts towards a more comprehensive strategy that really addresses all aspects of BECU. And I would say that we certainly recognize that, we're on a journey and will be more successful in achieving equity and inclusion if employees and members and our communities are really at the center of this work. We really expect this to be informed through our efforts in terms of sort of convening and listening and learning alongside our community, incorporating feedback from employees as well as our members. And quite honestly, in using data to understand, are we making progress? And I would also say, in terms of, I mentioned, sort of this journey and learning is, continue to learn and grow as an organization. And an example of that is one of our goals for this year is all employees are engaged with a personal learning goal. So every single employee is committed to continuing their own journey in 22. Which is something new for the organization, and that we're really excited about, just the level of engagement from all employees. So very excited about that and continuing that journey. Allison, Hazel May, back to you, or anyone else who would like to chime in. Of course, sorry.
I think you got it.
Thanks, Melanie.
Nice. And thank you, Melanie, for that. As an employee of BSU, those diversity, equity, inclusion goals have been my favorite thing that has happened this year. I couldn't decide which one to choose of all the different activities that would help us all continue on our collective journey. Another pre-event submitted question. Oh, and this one's a good one. In the most recent state legislative session, did BECU take a stand on any topics or issues?
Thanks, Hazel May. That's a great question, and one close to my heart as the VP of Government Relations. But I'm going to take this question and hand it right off to Jon. Jon, what are your thoughts about the last state legislative session?
Sure. Thanks, Allison. And I would invite you to chime in if you have more to add. One thing I'd like to just start with is just recognizing that one of the great things about being a member-owned cooperative is that we can work with credit unions, with other credit unions on a lot of these issues. So a lot of the policy work that we do is really in very close collaboration with all the other credit unions in the Northwest especially. So a few highlights to that financial literacy education bill that I talked about earlier. I think it was Senate Bill 5720. So that is kind of funding financial literacy in in the public schools of Washington State. So something that we're pretty excited about. Another highlight to me would be continued focus on privacy laws, so enhancing privacy for consumers broadly. So some of that's at the state level. And then some of you may know we have members in all 50 states. We're working with a patchwork of privacy laws, so we continue to advocate for some federal standards on privacy. The last item I would highlight is it's kind of a technical bill that updates our credit union charter. Some of those items are very tangible though. So with the pandemic, we have a lot more of our back office functions working remotely. So one of the things this bill did is it gives us more flexibility in a kind of real estate that we own but don't fully occupy, which is really kind of required with the pandemic and the current environment that we have. So those are some highlights to me, but Allison, you might have more to add on that.
Yeah, thanks, Jon. I would add just a couple of other thoughts. One, and just, we appreciate the ability to collaborate with other credit unions and frankly other financial service providers when we are talking with our elected leaders across the state. It is certainly beneficial for them to hear the stories from you all, from our members, from our employees, and how we're making a difference for their constituents and our communities. And that line of communication continues to be very valuable, certainly to us. And I would also say, in terms of making sure that our state laws are updated when it comes to credit union service delivery, we do take that work very seriously, and it certainly is on behalf of our members that we are engaging in the legislative process to make sure we are ready to serve. And certainly if there are, legislators, again, willing to listen and have some good conversations with us. So definitely appreciate the work that we get to do with our state legislators and other elected leaders. Hazel May, I think we're back to you for another question.
Yes. We talked a little bit about kind of security and the transition of our environments thanks to everything that's going on in our world. This one, I think, will be a little bit more geared to Fumbi. What is BSU doing to protect members from fraud and scams? What can members do to protect their personal information?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. And I think maybe actually Melanie and I should tag team on that because Melanie has responsibility for the administration. But I think the basic thing that I would tell people is always remember that there are certain things that we do when we, do not share your passwords out to people. We have some processes within that we never call you and ask you for, your social security or your PIN. So do not do that. Don't send, don't write your PIN numbers out obvious and call it a PIN so that people can obviously take advantage of that. There are complicated ways, but if any in doubt, right, and you're not sure that an information is coming from the right source, definitely feel free if it's a call or an email, feel free to just walk into an NFC and ask and do not divulge any information for people that you don't know. So those are simple information that I would say that we do. We do every time we make every effort to make sure that we protect our members' information because obviously we are regulated and we want to make sure you feel safe with your money and your investment with us. But Melanie, is there anything else that you would suggest that we do not do as well, since you have to deal with those call center folks as well?
Yeah, sure. I think you hit a lot of the high points for sure. One, we're never going to ask you for personally identifiable information. So that includes account numbers. We're not going to ask you for social security numbers. We're not going to reach out and ask you for that kind of information, as Moody said. And so I also say, trust your gut a little bit too, in terms of, did you get an email? Did you get a text? Are you getting a phone call? And if they're asking for information, card numbers, anything like that, know that that's not coming from us. And hang up, don't look at them, delete the text. Feel free to, contact us. Certainly, you can call our call center just to verify the information, as well as let us know what you've just experienced. We also have a number of things on the back end, working to protect you in terms of our ATMs, in terms of other kind of predictive things to look for fraud patterns that we see, so that we try to shut things down before they happen. Certainly, so those are a couple of additional things that we're doing to continue to protect our members.
Great. Thanks, Boomby. Thanks, Melanie. A very timely question. Hazel May, I think we have time for some more.
Yes. This question came from a member before this event, and they wanted to express their appreciation that BEC stayed open during the pandemic. How did our branch employees react to having to show up and work in person every day? And did we lose any employees during that time?
It's a great question. Melanie, I think this one is fitted for you.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. And one, I thank you for the question, because it certainly shows a great deal of care and consideration for our member-facing employees who come in every day to serve our members and community. So just appreciate the thoughtfulness of that question. And I would say that, certainly safety and well-being of our employees and members is always front and center in every single decision that we're making. And I will say that continuing to put in place various programs that really supported employees was really a key element, in addition to all of the different safety protocols, to really making sure that we put our best foot forward to ensure that employees did feel safe in coming to work, so that they could continue to serve all of you. I would also say that there was a fair amount of we talked about this earlier in terms of different ways to solve problems, different ways to work. And that certainly extended to our frontline employees as well. So a lot of different kinds of things that we put in place in terms of additional flexibility certainly helped to support the team in terms of the work that they needed and wanted to do. And that flexibility and support really helped employees navigate lots of other things like at-home learning. I mean, who knew that we were going to be doing that for as long as we, did? And And so that was those kinds of programs to help to support that, caring for family members, and making sure that they're staying healthy. We're all really top of mind in terms of the programs that we put in place over the last couple of years. So again, just really appreciate the thoughtful question.
Thank you, Melanie.
And back to you. Sorry.
Hazel May.
Yes. So this question might have just came out of my own head or my own heart at least. We have had at BECU a lot of changes in our tech organization, and we know that we're looking for a lot of tech people as well. So, but Seattle has a lot of tech companies that we're kind of vying with talent with the competition. So how is our credit union attracting the IT talent that we need? How do you compete with companies like Google and Amazon who are recruiting so aggressively, especially in our neck of the woods?
I presume that question is for me, right? There you are. So it's a great question. I think what we have to look at is it's not, when we talk about tech talent, you could just qualify that. Technology talent does not necessarily all sit in technology. Tech talent does not always sit in technology. So I would invite my colleagues as well to chime in. But I think the macro level that we need to talk about is the war for talent, right? So war for talent is real. And I think we need to all embrace it. We all anticipated, I'm sure, Melanie, 2-3 years ago, we were talking about if this comes, right? And now it's here, right? It was an if, right? Now it's now here. I think the problem is not just, BECU. The same problem for war for talent applies to everybody, right? To the Googles and the Amazons, and everybody's trying to find ways to have that stay conversation, and really having the workplace be the best employee of the place to work. I think the fact that we're doing great things, and the purpose of BECU and the mission driven and the value that we bring in is what attracted me to come to BECU. I work for a global organization back in Europe. And I moved my entire family over here to serve, to really help create something unique. And BECU has definitely performed that for me. And I think that's what attracts us. The kind of work we do, the organization we're in, the element of making an impact to our community, making our members to our communities, our members is phenomenal. And I think that if you believe in that mission, you can attract any talent. We also realize that, as I said, if it's a war for talent, it's not just unique to the Washington state. It's a global phenomenon. So we've also taken that opportunity to really be that, hybrid working relationship. We've expanded our reach to really go to cities that we know that has skill set and providing that flexibility. We're setting up a development center in Texas. We're going to create one in Georgia. And hopefully, not only would we be able to attract even the best talent to help us do what we need to do, but help us also, create that greater reach allow for people to know where BECU, what BECU does and who BECU are outside the state of Washington. I mean, Jon and Melanie, I know we all face that on a daily basis around our talents. Anything else you want to add?
I would add a little bit. I think you covered it really well. But that we're at a scale where a lot of the work we do is really engaging. It's as advanced as anybody in the industry. So we have a combination of really compelling work that's great for developing and advancing your career, but at the same time we're a purpose-driven organization. So, I mean, we can't compete with some of the equity offers that you can get maybe working for a tech company. But we have other features that I think are really compelling that help us attract talent.
So I would say that if everything that you just heard from, which I completely echo from Fumbi and from Jon, sounds like something you're interested in, I would love for you to take a look at becu.org careers, because we have lots of really fantastic opportunities, and would love for you to take a look and join the team.
Thank you, Fumbi, Jon, and Melanie. And Hazel May, I believe we have time to take one final question.
Wow. So this one I was curious about. We have Jon on our panel here, and there's a question from the members. It sounds like what you do, Jon, is kind of invisible to members. It's not as forward as maybe our technology that we have, or even with our members and the operational side of within our branches. So it's a little bit invisible to our members. Can you tell the BECU membership, why is your role so important for us?
Sure. Yeah, glad to. And in some ways, if you're overseeing risk, legal compliance, being invisible can be a good thing. But yeah, I still appreciate the question. So we want to be here to serve our members for the long term, like forever. So functions like our risk teams, compliance, and legal, they help keep us on track. And there's also a lot of alignment with what my team does and what our members need. So for example, there's a lot of areas of compliance that are really about consumer protection, about transparency. That's really who we are as an organization anyway. That's in our DNA. But then, like as we've been talking about, minimizing fraud, improving cybersecurity, privacy, I think there's a lot of alignment between the right thing to do for our members and kind of what my team does day to day. But for the most part, we're pretty happy if we're not visible externally.
They're very visible internally, which is really good.
Yes, they are, and very important partners as well.
I can say that as your direct report, Jon, very visible internally. That's a great question, Hazel May. Thank you very much, and thanks, Jon, for answering. I think a lot of what we do, always in service to our members, even all of the work we do that's not member facing. And I think all of us here, again, based on this conversation this afternoon, committed to serving our members, certainly our employees, as you all have heard in this session, and our communities. And just really want to appreciate all of you for taking the time this afternoon. I believe that wraps up this session. If your question wasn't addressed, or if you didn't have a chance to submit, you can email it to communityrelations@becu.org. We'll put that email in the chat screen so you have it. Thank you all for attending, and thank you very much, Fumbi, Jon, and Melanie, and Hazel May for all of your wonderful questions. There is a survey below. You can find it by scrolling down the page. Please take a moment to let us know your feedback on this session. We deeply appreciate that communication and for you all sharing your thoughts, both now and beyond. Again, thanks everybody for your time. Stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.